So for us, we started looking at the life cycle of the deal, not just, beginning to end and that's it. Because that, in Salesforce, they give you, the create date of that opportunity and the close date. But, that's all you get. How long an opportunity took. If it took a weekend, doesn't matter. But it's kind of fuzzy. So we wanted to get a lot more precise with it. So we started putting in timestamps on different life cycles of that opportunity. One I actually wanted to go over real quick is just for those outbound telemarketers and for the people that are dealing with the inbound calls that we get. One of the biggest things for us, obviously, is sending out our application. We have to send out, that's the very first step in anything we do other than that initial conversation to establish interest, is getting that application out, getting it signed, getting it returned. We use DocuSign for e-signature, as I mentioned, so it's important to us to get that information back because that's the backbone for a lot of things that we do. So for us, for those outbound reps, the apps out metric that we have here is critical. And what this is basically doing is we do have a button in Salesforce that kicks out a DocuSign document to the primary contact's email address. It gets sent out. It gets tagged in Salesforce so we know that document was sent out. We can see the status of it. But it also taps out a timestamp, as you can see here, on that Salesforce record so we know when that app was sent out, when that button was hit. And not only that, we can see that who the app was sent out by. That was very important as well to understand, is that we shouldn't always use and rely on the fact that the owner of the record is probably the one that sent it out. In this case, it usually is. In our org, we do pass things along. So we do have, let's say, an inbound rep is the one that had taken the phone call, the initial phone call, got the application sent out, got any of the documentation, the stipulations that needed back in. And then that deal is passed on to another person. It's passed on to an account executive that works that deal, looks at different lenders and see what can get approved. So at that point, the ownership of that record changes, and we wouldn't want to assign that app out timestamp to the account executive if they're not the one that sent out the app. But in respect, those account executives also send out applications as well. So it was important that we created a separate field that was going to capture not only the timestamp that action took place, but the user that pressed that button that set that timestamp. So in this case, you can see that we have an apps sent user and apps out timestamp. We also have the exact same thing set up for apps in as well. So whenever those documents come back in, the very first thing that happens when it comes back in is that it's going to top off the apps back metric. And it's going to increment, it's going to put a timestamp in there for when we receive the document signed, and we move on to the next step. And so one of the nice things about that is that we have in Ambition, again, you have an advanced metric. And so we actually put in there an app conversion rate. So what we were looking to get here is that if I'm a sales rep and I sent out 10 applications and I got back 5 of them, in a given week, then I'm operating at a 50% conversion rate, which is not bad. But again, in our industry, it's important that we establish that there's going to be interest, that we're going to send out those apps, that we're not just sending it out to anybody, that we can send it out to people that have interest and we get those back. And then we're on the people that we send them out to get them back in an orderly fashion. And we actually had set up a workflow in our org so that after a set period of time, if an opportunity is open too long that stays in just the apps out phase, it's setting off a lot of SLAs, setting off alerts to the management team so that they can take a look at that particular deal. And if it's not worked in a set time period, it'll actually expire the opportunity and close it out, which will go to a secondary team that specializes in following up with those people to see if they can get the documents back in. So on here, this advanced metric for the app conversion rate, you can see we're just comparing the apps out and package deals. And it's really as simple as just taking in both metrics and saying, let's say, take apps back, divided by apps out. So if we had, if we got 5 back divided by 10, so that's 5 out of 10, which is going to be a 0.5. And then all you have to do is you just give it a multiplier of 100. And if you weren't sure about that, you can go right here on the help, and it'll tell you that usually if you want to convert it with decimal into percentages, you just use 100. So you put 100 there. If you want, as I had done here, you can just put a minimum and a maximum just to make sure there's nothing, nothing too crazy, so that if an app came in at the end of the week and we're looking at one particular week and one number was a little bit higher than the other, that, if apps back was higher than apps out, we wouldn't want to be at, 120%. Still want to show it as just, topping out at 100%. So we put that little cap in there as well, save that, and that's up and running now so that we can actually see on a leaderboard at any time, we can see what the conversion rates are for reps, and that's yet another thing that we can put on the TVs and yet another thing we can base the challenges off of.
That's very cool. A lot of unique little tidbits here. I want to unpack a few of them. We don't have to go back to it, but back in that metric screen, you had that custom user field and that custom date. Was that unique to, because I know that DocuSign and almost every other third-party solution has their own. Was that theirs, or did you make your own custom user field and date?
That's our own custom. That was built in. We had built into the actual DocuSign button that it generates that field.
Yeah, and that's a pretty easy process. People ask us all the time, like, hey, can you guys measure blah? Like, blah can be anything. And ultimately the answer is yes, if you can tie it to a user field and tie it to a specific date. And that's what you did there. You basically said, hey, we want to know when apps are sent and back and yada, yada, yada. And as long as we can tie it, and like you said, it's not unique to the modification stamp. It's not unique to the owner of the opportunity. It's unique to the role, the person's job who actually sent the app on that opportunity. So that does require a unique date field and user field. So that's it's pretty cool. I'm glad you showed that.